guys, let's do this. Here we go. And it looks like we're on season 2. Alright, so let's get my boy Adam in on this. Let's he should be here. So he should be here shortly, so. And there he is. He's representing the wolf. That's right. That's right. How you doing, Adam? I'm not doing bad, man. Not doing bad. So, looks like we're on season 2 now. They changed a couple things. Yeah, in the last season, I got to like level like 20 or something like that. Me and Janice, we were doing a lot of playing it back and forth. She always wanted to play around or something like that. So I just organically, I guess, leveled up. So, yeah, that's how I got the hot dog thing. I was like, I saw the hot dog, I'm like, I kind of want it. And then I didn't realize this game was like Fortnite and some of these others where they have like multiple seasons and stuff. It seems like that's becoming a new trend, doesn't it? They keep selling the season passes and all that. I guess it's becoming just the new norm and the new way of things, just with DLC and continuing to give us more content at a price, of course, but, you know, so. But, you know, we all know video games are a business for them first and foremost, obviously, so, you know. But, there we go. Come on, open up. Yeah, it's funny, when I first heard about this game, I was like, what is this game is all about? Because, like, all my buddies were playing this game, and I'm sure a lot of people on your friends list were playing this. I'm like, what is this game? What's the big deal? And then I see who the developer was, Devolver Digital. I'm like, oh, yeah, they've made some really good games. I mean, I can't think off the top of my head a game, but I know they've made... Oh, I guess I'm out already. Well, that was fast. Holy crap! Oh man, that's fine. I'll ride it out and I'll watch. See how far you can get. But in the meantime, oh, you're out too? Oh my gosh. Let's do it up again. Yeah. So we'll just round it up, and while we're waiting for the game to load and we can exit out and start another session, Adam, why don't you tell the audience about who you are, you know me, and yeah, just let's get it cracking. I'll try. I know, right? I would have to agree, good sir. I would have to agree. It's definitely been a blast, and it's kind of funny how we met, really. It's like I wasn't even expecting it to happen, like, so, and that sometimes is, you know, what makes life interesting and whatnot. It's like those kind of things you don't expect, and I mean, I don't even know how it happened. Like, I actually try to think back, like, what was the conversation that we had, but I don't remember if it was a game or if it was an anime or it was something. I just don't remember what it was. I know, that was the best. That was the best. Japan didn't know what was hitting them. I'm surprised they let us back in the country, or that I raided their game stores. I made out like a bandit, bro, when I went there. I remember, like, I told Janice about that. I was like, all the games I came back with. She's like, I'm like, yeah, I had to pad my clothes around to fit all of them. It was, dude, I knew I was going to do that the first time I went to Japan. I was like, there's no way that you put me in Japan where it's like the mecca of games and not buy a video game. Like, that's just like, it's the worst, it's just wrong. So, yeah. Oh, man. I can't believe it's been 7 years, man. It's just, it's hard to believe, but yeah, I invited everybody, who's ever new to the channel, my buddy Adam here, because we're good friends, and I was like, hey, why not? Let's stream a little, let's play some games, and just kind of shoot the breeze, and just, chat it up and whatnot. And speaking on that note, what do you think, Adam, of these next-gen consoles, the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X? I know that these are coming right around the corner. I believe we're about 5 to 6 weeks out, give or take, somewhere around that range. But what's your first impressions of the new boxes out there, and what's exciting you about them? Why don't you share that with the audience, and then I'll kind of segue in and talk about what I'm thinking of, what they're looking like, and what I'm excited about. I made it. No, I made it. I made it, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. I didn't even think about the VR. I totally forgot about that. And I'm dead, but that's okay. But yeah, I agree. I honestly forgot about the PSVR. Like, I think, like, you hit the nail on the head. Like, it was a great in concept, like, piece of technology, right? Because it was kind of bringing the VR kind of back to the limelight, right? It was able to kind of make it something that people are talking about, because, you know, after the Virtual Boy, Nintendo's old VR, I guess, experiment, as you'd call it, like, people kind of forgot about VR, but, you know, over the last couple of years with augmented reality from the 3DS, or even the Vita, which was a great piece of hardware in and of itself, you know, more of these simulations, or this virtual reality, if you will, is being brought more to the limelight. And I think with the extra horsepower behind the PlayStation 5, I think it can be very probable, if not likely, because the hardware should be able to support it. So it'd be interesting to see what they do with the technology, because they have the technology, because the PS5 should be more than sufficient to handle that workload that the because I know with the PS4, it was kind of struggling even at the Pro level to support the VR. So absolutely. And to answer your question, the VR headset came out before the Pro, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it came out before the Pro. Yeah, so it was released, I want to say right between the right between the PS4 and the Pro, so it literally came out like right smack in the middle. And I think by the time that it came out, they tried to optimize the Pro as much as they could to support the VR or give it kind of like that speed boost or that performance boost, but it wasn't like fully optimized for it, if you will, right? It was kind of more like, I feel like it was kind of an afterthought. Like, it's like, oh, hey, the PSVR gets like this little performance kick, but it's not like, it wasn't optimized for it, I guess, if that makes sense. Like they gave it some extra speed and some performance, but it just wasn't tailored towards it. So, but I think this time around it really is. It really is, because like it had potential. I really do. I remember the story for me. It's like my brother gave me his because he just stopped using it. That's how I got my hands on that, and I used it a handful of times. And honestly, I actually really liked the PlayStation version better than some of the other ones like I tried for the PC platforms, like the Oculus Rift or the. What do you call it? The I forgot what the other one's called. The Steam one or the Vive. Yeah, the HTC Vive. Yeah. The problem I had with those headsets was twofold. One, you had to really have a really high-end gaming rig and spend a couple grand just to even have the hardware to be capable to run it. And then B, a lot of the games that support it, I don't know, like I felt like they were either tech demos or kind of half-baked, or they just weren't games that I personally was interested in, so it made it kind of hard. Versus the PlayStation one, for me at least, it had a wide library of great characters and game franchises, and it just had an immediate audience, that was, just something I was already interested in, so that kind of made it appealing. Plus, the design, I thought was the best. Honestly, like, design-wise, I thought aesthetics, it looked way cooler than the other ones, because it had the kind of futuristic blue, what do you call it, the blue, black, and white vibe. It just kind of looked like, it reminds me of the whole PS5, where we're talking about design and stuff, and how it's like futuristic, if you will. And I think that's one thing that Sony is, I think, out of the next-gen consoles is doing really well, is the design. The design is amazing. Like, I mean, it's a fantastic design. So, but yeah, going back to the conversation, I know we took a little segue there, but going back to the conversation about the next-gen consoles, I actually sentiment a lot of your thoughts. Like, I think it's just going to be hardware refreshes moving forward, like you said, faster frame rates and speed and different stuff, but it's kind of the whole Moore's Law thing, right, about the increases in processing power and everything else. And the SSD drive stuff I'm excited about to optimize the game loading screen. So, because essentially, what we're getting back to is the cartridge level loading screens with the SSD. It's like, it's that fast. It's pretty impressive. It really is. Okay, okay. You would think, but I feel like what happened with the VR thing is, it's kind of like what happened to the PSP and the Vita. I feel like it was one of those concepts that it didn't really get off the ground as much as Sony wanted it to, because like, we all know with the Vita and the PSP, it had a strong presence in Japan. Like, it was just very popular, and I mean, it makes sense for the area in Japan because, as everybody knows, in Japan they have all the public transit, but here in America, that's just not as much of the thing. People have their own cars, and I don't know, it's just not as common. So I think that was the problem there. But that's on a kind of complete segue. But the VR, I feel like it just didn't give the love and attention it needed. I think that was the biggest problem. True. True. Like the dating sims. does. Isn't it? It really is pretty amazing. But I kind of laugh on the Switch. It's like it's ingenious. Don't get me wrong, but they basically took their handheld market and they combined it into their console market. So it's kind of funny how they kind of like in a way kind of took themselves out of one market, but they took themselves into another market all at the same time, if that makes sense. So yeah. It's interesting, you know, with all these, I guess, trends and shifts and changes. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty fantastic. And you make a good point about the Vita. Like the Vita, like my stance on this was, I thought it was a great piece of hardware. It had great potential, but it's like the PSP. Like I thought that the PSP was an amazing piece of tech. And I mean, the problem was, it's just the way Sony just did not know how to market it pretty well. And on top of that, it's just like, you know, a lot of the games for a lot of people were just like, were versions of games they could get on the Big Brother system. So in the case of the PS Vita, a lot of them felt like PS3 games they could get just on a smaller screen. That was part of the problem. Or like with the PSP, it was the PS2. So, you know, because like if you think about it, on the PSP you had God of War, right? But you could play God of War on your PS2 or whatever. Or like Uncharted for the PS3, you could play, there's a Vita one and stuff. So it's like for a lot of people, I felt like they were getting more of the same, if that makes sense. That was part of the problem. It is. Oh, I love that. I love the portability of that thing where you can dock it or take it with you and stuff. I think the Switch Lite, since you brought that up, I think that only makes sense really if you either want to have a backup Switch for maybe for like your kid or something like that, or just like a portable one. But like, you know, like, but unless you have it for a specific circumstance, it's kind of like you said, redundant if there's not a specific use case for it. I mean, especially with the whole Joy-Con thing being, the docking thing not being an ability, because you basically hold it like a handheld. You can't use any of the docking capabilities of it, if I recall correctly. So I'm kind of like, something like that, yeah. Well, it's funny you bring that up. It's funny you bring that back, yeah, because you know the whole holding back thing that you're talking about, how it's holding the Switch back. Well, there is talk about Nintendo releasing a 4K Switch next year. There's some talks going on about that. So we don't know if it's going to be like a dock that they're just going to sell as an accessory or enhancement, like because there's some talks that NVIDIA or AMD, I forgot who's doing the chips for them. I think it's AMD. There's talks that there's a dock that could essentially have the chip inside of it, and you would just literally plug in your existing Switch and it would have the new hardware. Or there's the talk about there being an extra SKU where they'll just re-release it again with 4K built into the unit. So it's like it could go either way, but that's what people have been talking about, or at least speculating. So, I mean, I think they could obviously do it either way. It's just me knowing Nintendo as well as I think I do, they'll just re-release a whole new system SKU instead of like some kind of add-on or accessory to give it 4K capability, probably. That's my guess. But you gotta also wonder like how much different the games are gonna look, because we both know Nintendo, they're not big about upgrading on the technology standards all that much, and even when they do, they're kind of like Apple, where they kind of just do it at their own pace. Although with the whole 5G thing we were talking about earlier, that's like kind of a funny irony, if you will. But I mean, it's something you think about, like, you know, because Nintendo kind of just, we all know they beat to the sound of their own drum, right? They kind of like are like, we release the games when we want to, we do the hardware the way we want to do it. And I mean, I get why Nintendo does it. I get it. I mean, and you know, in all Nintendo's defense, I think they're great great innovators. So it's like I don't give them too much crap because they make some of the best games out there and they make some of the best hardware innovations that if it wasn't for Nintendo, the industry would not grow and thrive. I mean, when you think about the Wii Motion thing, look what happened after the Wii Motion thing. Then we had the Kinect and the PlayStation Move right after that. Kind of funny, isn't it, how they took their technology and then imitated. Or remember the N64, the Rumble Pack, and then we had the DualShock controller and all these things. Or, you know, even going back to the original Nintendo when we had the NES, the D-pad, right? After the days of the Ataris and stuff with all the joysticks and the number key pads and all that nonsense that, like, was very archaic for the time. Oh, I hate these walls, man. It's like a trick. Yeah. It does remind me of that. It really does. But yeah, I mean, segueing back to our next gen talk that we were talking about, like, I agree with you. It's like, I'm excited for the SSD and the quick resume gameplay thing I'm really excited about because, like, for me, I think that's a really cool feature software-wise because, like, if you were to be like, hey, Zach, let's play some Fall Guys or Division 2 while I'm playing, like, you know, something else, I can quickly pause it, put it in a suspense state, and then be able to play that with you, and then when you're done or if you had to leave, I could just go back to my game right where I left off. I wouldn't even have to, like, quit. So it's like, I think that's actually a very cool feature that's kind of being underlooked. So I think this generation, my honest thoughts on it is, I feel like this gen is more about software optimizations and the ecosystem. Now, the hardware, yes, it's improved, don't get me wrong, but I think the software is where they're really putting their emphasis in, I think, just looking at these consoles, because when you think about it, what are they advertising? It's like, yeah, the SSD on the hardware, sure, fine. It's really a lot of these software features, or at least on the Microsoft side, but we'll get to that in a second. But, I mean, honestly, you know, on the PlayStation side, I'm really excited for, well, like you said, the games, what they're going to do with the new DualSense controller. I think that'll be interesting. I just hope it's not another one of those, you know, things where it's like, what was that PlayStation 3 controller feature? The, was it the motion thing that was like half-baked or was like never used? I forgot what it was called. That's it. That was it. It was the 6-axis. That's what it was. Yeah, because you remember games like Lair, they hyped the shit out of it, or hyped the crap out of it, I'm sorry. They hyped the crap out of it, and then it's like, you know, and then the game came out, and then it was a complete disappointment, a complete failure, right? So it's like, I just don't want to see them repeat that same scenario. And I remember Lair was coming from the guys who did Rogue Squadron, what was it, Star Wars Rogue Squadron, remember the one from the N64 and the GameCube? That developer, Factor 5. So Factor 5 had like a really big street cred with, you know, gamers and stuff, because, you know, people love the Rogue Squadron games, like back on the 64 and GameCube, so like they had high hopes for that, but then Lair came out and it was a complete flop, complete disaster. I mean, so you didn't miss much with the game. Yeah, it fell. Ugh. Oh no, I died, so that's why I'm just keeping going until... Oh, you did? Oof. Yeah, you... Unfortunately, yeah. It's just... Yeah, so, I mean, honestly, I'm really excited about the PS5. I love the design. I mean, as we were talking about, like, that's something that's really striking out to me, is the design is very... It feels like a spaceship. It feels very futuristic, but, I mean, I've always been a fan of Sony's console designs. They always... I feel like they appeal to both the U.S. audience, the Japanese audience, and Asia, and even the Europe. Like, they know how to be very geographically, culturally diverse, if you will, right? They're able to appeal to all the different types of markets, because, like, Microsoft, on the flip point, we all know that Microsoft struggled to market themselves in other areas. Like, look at the original Xbox. Even the 360, they got more Japanese developers, which definitely helped them. Like, that's one thing Microsoft did that was very smart, but, you know, they still struggled in Japan, even with the Japanese support that they didn't have from the original Xbox. But, you know, but overall, back on the PS5, I mean, I think they have a couple good launch titles. I wish the launch lineup, honestly, was a little bit stronger, and I'm going to throw that back to you. Like, what do you think of the launch lineup based off what they have coming before the end of the year? I mean, we all know that in 2021, there's going to be a lot of new games that's to be expected. But what do you think of the launch lineup compared to previous console gens, like the PS3 or the PS2? Like, what do you think about that? Exactly. Nice. It's just shortly after. Yeah, it's about a week after the launch. Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, yeah, me and you will have a conversation. Actually, there's a separate YouTube video I have in mind, and we'll talk about the whole remakes, remasters discussion. So I'll have Adam join me on that video. So everybody stay tuned for that. We'll definitely have that in the future because that's a whole topic me and Adam have talked about a lot. So I'm definitely excited to have that video and share that with our audience so they can kind of chime in with their thoughts because it's a very interesting topic. It really is, amongst other things. So, yeah, going back to the PS5 games, I mean, I pretty much share a lot of the same sentiments. I'm excited about Cyberpunk 2077. I'm going to get the PS4 version and just get the PS5 upgrade because they've said, quote-unquote, from what I've read, although that's a whole topic right there as well, too, the whole PS5 backward compatibility or lack thereof or lack of transparency or... anyway, but I'll finish the first segment before I get into that whole can of worms. So, game-wise, I'm excited for Godfall. Godfall looks sick. Like, I'm actually pretty excited for that because it reminds me of, like, Borderlands, the looting, and just, what happened? You're falling? You broke it? Oh, shoot. Oh, shoot. Oh, no worries. Let's get us... Well, I died, I think, too. So I think it's all good. But, yeah, like I was saying, Godfall looks sick. Like, that I'm excited for because it reminds me of the loot elements of, if I'm correct in saying so, like Borderlands or like Diablo. It reminds me of those kind of games, and I love those games. Speaking of which, we need to get a Borderlands 3 session at some point once that game gets cheap. I'm waiting for the $20 price tag. Correct. That one is one of the few games that's actually being supported natively. I know Yakuza, the new Set 17, like I have a PS4 copy pre-ordered, so I'm gonna get the PS5 upgrade for that because I thought about the PS5, version for that, but then I'm like, well, if it's gonna be compatible, cool. But I mean, my general stance on that is like, for the most part, I'll probably just buy the PS5 version moving forward, unless I know without a shred of a doubt it'll work. I mean, and granted, you got to follow a fun little FAQ or a fun little, white paper essentially to figure out if it works or not, which is kind of a funny thing as we move forward in these generations and whatnot. It's just one of those things where it's, backward compatibility is really becoming a thing of the past. Like, it used to be a big feature, and I feel like a lot of these developers are kind of putting it in, but only on an as-needed basis or if it'll work easily. But, like, I feel like the further we go down this pipeline, the less and less it's going to become relevant, and which makes me kind of sad because I love backward compatibility just so you can expand your library or have options to play those games beyond, the shelf life of having that console and whatnot. So, that's, excuse me, that's definitely another video we'll definitely do as well in the future. Like, I definitely want to do a big discussion on backwards compatibility because that's another topic, like, we could definitely segue into as well, too, because, like, that's one of those things, like, I love to talk about. So, but on the launch titles, I mean, generally speaking, you're correct. Usually the launch titles are usually pretty, it's pretty crap. It's usually pretty hit or miss. You're kind of like, wait, why did I spend $500 to buy this box and then, like, nothing is available? Or you feel like you kind of got gypped, right, in a way. Like, you're kind of like... Right? Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. So, before I segue into Xbox, I'll just finish up my thoughts on the PS5 before we move into that. Real quick, what I would say is, hey, when I get the Xbox, you can always like try mine out and give it a test drive and stuff. I mean, obviously, once I get to Texas, as my audience knows, I told them in my last video that I am moving over to Texas and stuff. So, I mean, like I said, you'll obviously definitely be able to play it if you want to like kind of test drive it before, you know, taking the plunge, if you will. So, definitely just throwing that out there. But, yeah, on the PS5, the launch titles I'm excited about are Godfall, as we talked about, that loot-based Borderlands type of game, which I'm really excited about. And then Sackboy's Adventure I'm kind of a little interested in because I love Little Big Planet, and it looks like a fun little platformer. So, and then you mentioned, I think it was it Dark Souls or Demon Souls? I think it was Demon Souls. Yeah, Demon Souls. So I'm excited about that because I didn't play it that much on the PS3, to be honest. I played more of Dark Souls, so I'm kind of excited just because I didn't get a chance to play it. But other than that, not so much. I mean, like, I did enjoy the first Spider-Man. Now, this new one, Spider-Man Morales, Mike Morales, or Miles Morales, or something like that. Miles Morales, yeah. I'm kind of interested in it, but, like, I feel like it's one of those games that it's going to get in the bargain bin at some point. So I feel like if I wait long enough, it'll at least drop $10-20 or something like that after the Christmas launch or whatever. But, I mean, is it something I might play at some point? Probably, but I haven't even finished the other Spider-Man, so I'm kind of like, you know, I'm kind of like in that position where it's like I'd rather finish that before going into the next. But I mean, typically console launches, as we all know, are usually kind of like crap. But moving on to the Xbox, but overall, grade-wise, before I go into Xbox, I give the PlayStation launch probably a 7. It's like, it's an okay launch in terms of game content, but in terms of my system excitement, I'd say probably about an 8 or a 9 is where I'm kind of like lining up. What would you rate it right now? Oh, it's stupid. There still are, too. Yeah. Yep, I saw that video. So secretive, yeah. Of course, of course. Yeah, no, absolutely, and I would completely agree with you, good sir. So it's like, I think based on the feedback you're giving and based off like how Sony's kind of really
marketed this or lack thereof marketing are left with all the unanswered questions. I mean, just to add something to that, it took a Japanese YouTuber who was showing off a lot of these features on the console for us to even know anything about it that Sony has not even shown, which is kind of funny that a Japanese YouTuber, I don't know if you saw this, but there's a YouTube video that's been going around the web where this guy, I guess, got a PS5 early. He showed how big the console is in terms of like length, depth, and things like that. And this isn't the teardown video, but this is a video talking about just like the SSD speed and like showing how the games play in real time and all this stuff and all that. It's like, I mean, if it gets to that kind of point to advertise it, I feel like you've really done a disservice. Like you mentioned earlier in our conversation about the next-gen consoles, Microsoft just straight up came out there and gave us everything we need to know. The specs, all the features, I mean, all the videos with the load time differences, the backward compatibility, everything. So, like, in terms of marketing, like, Microsoft killed it. They really nailed it. Like, you know what you're getting with the box. Like, there's no secret, really. Like, everything is out there. Like, you could go on the internet and it's all right there for you at a silver platter. Sony, you have to freaking cherry pick around all these articles to try to figure it out, and I just don't understand that. So honestly, your rating I think is very well supported and understood, so a 4 out of 10 for that. And you know, you made some good points I didn't even think about. So so that's Sony. So let's move on to the Xbox now. So my first thoughts about the Xbox is ecosystem wise, I think it's interesting. Like, I think it's interesting the approach, how they're trying to keep their existing fan base, but also expand it by not forcing people to upgrade. Now, I think that could be a two-fold knife, right? Because think about it, or a double-edged sword, I should say more accurately, because, you know, in one way, you're telling people, well, you don't have to buy the new console, you can play all the games. But then, like, for the people who do upgrade, it's like you might get some extra features, but it's kind of a double-edged sword because, like, for a lot of people, if they're not seeing the games being severely upgraded or in a stance where they're feeling that value, why are they going to go spend $500 when their other console can already do that already? So that's kind of the other thing that I'm, like, a little surprised about. Now, in terms of launch titles, honestly, from what I've looked at, because you asked about this earlier, I don't know of too many, because the game that I was originally going to buy this for, which, I mean, obviously Microsoft's been running off the coattails of this since the Xbox first came out on the scene back in 2001, is Halo. So I was interested in Halo Infinite, but then that got delayed to Q1 of 2021 because of COVID-19. So, game launch-wise, I mean, here's the thing. I don't know how well-versed you are about what's been going on in the Microsoft world, Adam, but, like, basically, for the first launch year, from what I've been told or read, all the games that are coming out are going to be available on all the consoles, so there's no, like, one-off exclusive. Like, even Halo Infinite is going to be on all the platforms. It's going to be on Xbox One. Yeah, it's going to be on Xbox One. It's going to be on Xbox Series X, PC, or whatever. It's going to be on multiple platforms, so, which is a very interesting proposition, and I'm kind of like, well, what's making the next-gen purchase stand out so much? And, you know, on a separate note, the other problem I have with the launch that's a little confusing is, well, this kind of applies to both of them, is what's with this expensive pricing on the SSD expansion? Like $200+? Are you kidding me? For some SSD storage? And I'm sure you've looked at with Microsoft, you have to buy these proprietary memory cards, these SSD cards that fit into the slots. I'm like, what the heck? It's like, I mean, the 1 terabyte of memory, we all know with these next-gen consoles, is going to be eaten up like candy. Like, it's going to go fast, you know? It's like, I know on the current consoles with the Xbox or even the PlayStation 4, it's like I had to constantly delete games as soon as I completed them or I was done with them or whatever. So it's the same scenario all over again. And, like, I mean, external drives, as we know, that can expand the memory, but there's always limitations to those, right? You can only use it for certain types of data, right, to back it up. Like, if you want to play, like, a PS5 game or an Xbox Series X game, guess what? It has to be on the SSD. You can't play it off an external drive. So true. True. They are. Yeah, I mean, one can hope, right? It's funny you mentioned Samsung, because Samsung, I was talking to one of my other friends today, my friend Charles. He sent me a link about a new Samsung SSD card that they haven't officially said if it's compatible or not, but it's matching up the read-write speeds and, you know, specifications on there. So, I mean, across our fingers, but it looks like there could be a Samsung SSD. I think it's one of the M2 Evo sticks that would be compatible with it, which is one of their popular line of SSD, what do you call it, the PCIe cards or whatever. So there's definitely hope for that in that regard and stuff. My biggest thing is the price on these accessories just to expand memory. It's like, that's pretty expensive. I mean, you're talking like half the cost of a console just to upgrade the memory. I mean, like, one of the things I loved personally about the PS4 was, or even the Xbox One, is I could connect an external drive for like, what, $30 or $50 and expand my storage significantly and be able to, like, you know, swap between the games on the drive and, you know, the ones I wasn't playing, just move them to the external. But it seems like that's not going to be the case for this cycle, where it's like, you know, it'll work maybe with some of the old backward compatibility stuff, but with the new stuff, it's either like you put it on the SSD or you're boned pretty much, or you're just kind of out of luck. So and I mean, price wise on the Xbox, I think it's pretty priced competitively with that. But the one thing I will give Microsoft for that I'm really excited about, kind of for the Xbox Series X, is the Game Pass. I really do like the Game Pass a lot. It's phenomenal. And I'm sure you may have heard the announcement, maybe not, but EA Play is going to become free with Xbox Game Pass as well, too, on the subscription service. Yeah. So you're getting that in addition to all the content you're already getting for no extra cost. Comes right with it. That's pretty insane. No worries. This one's tough. Oh. Yeah, guys, this game is no joke. This game, Fall Guys, is a lot tougher than it looks. And this new season has some interesting new caveats. Oh, I'm probably gonna die. Oh, no. You did it? I'm gonna try. Come on. Come on, I gotta be like the Burger King. I gotta have it my way. I mean, I'm eliminated. That's okay. But you know, but that's the one thing Microsoft. Yeah, you got this. Carry us to victory. Carry us to victory, man. You got this. But like, yeah, that's. Oh, no worries. Yeah, the Xbox Game Pass, like I was saying, that that's, I think, the saving grace really for the Xbox Series X. I mean, I think that's one thing that's going to really help it stand out, because people are going to get a lot of value when they get that, because they don't have and you know, hundreds of dollars on these new games. They can pay $15 a month or whatever and get access to dozens upon dozens upon dozens of games. So I mean, that's a lot of, I mean, especially in this economy right now, that's a very value-oriented perspective. And I think that's what Microsoft is really trying to do, because I think they also realize a lot of people are buying the PlayStation 5. But here's one of the smart things that they did from a marketing perspective is, because of the two different SKUs, you know how the one SKU is $200 less than the X? Well, one of the smart things that they're trying to do is, because of these payment plans, they're looking at a way of people being able to buy both the PS5 and the Xbox for a lot less than buying the two consoles outright for like over $1,000, right? Because then if you do it through a payment plan, you're not having to spend, you know, an exorbitant amount of money out of the gate. So
Really? I hadn't heard about that. It could be. Who knows? Yes, yes. Like a decade. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to play the new I can't wait to play the new one because Gears of War 5, I remember on the Xbox One X, that thing, especially in 4K, holy crap, that looked great. That game just popped with the colors, man. Just, I mean, I really enjoyed the last one, so I would agree. I'm really excited to see what they do with the next one. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, but yeah, I would agree with a lot of your thoughts on Microsoft on that. So I mean, but yeah, launch title wise, I have to give the thumb up to Sony because Sony's actually got, I think, I mean, not by much, mind you, not by much, but Sony's definitely got a better launch lineup, I think, than Microsoft, just for the fact that they have, some exclusives and whatnot. But like, because Microsoft's more, I think, like I said, giving the ecosystem, right, and giving the software and services. So I think I think they just are coming into it from two different approaches. And Sony is doing the more traditional model, right, like better hardware, new games, blah blah blah. Where Microsoft's kind of like saying like, hey, you can get in with this great Game Pass and get access to all these different games without having to spend a whole lot of money. So I think they're trying to really focus in on the software side of things in the ecosystem. Like, and I got to give Microsoft credit where credit is due and stuff. Because, I mean, I'm like you. I don't have any affiliation with, like, one or the other. It's like, for me, it's like wherever the games come out on, I'll play it. I really could care less, like, the box that I'm playing it on. That doesn't matter to me, the whole console war nonsense and all that. And all that. So it's like if the game is good on Xbox, I'll play it on Xbox. If it's good on Sony, I'll play it on Sony. It's like it's irrelevant to me. It's all about the games themselves. So I think that rating wise, let's talk about the design first. What do you think of the design of the Xbox? We talked about the PlayStation 4's design where it kind of looks like a spaceship or very futuristic, but what do you think of the design of the Xbox? The fridge. Oh yeah, it's huge. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, Microsoft chose that design, I'm sure you've probably heard about, because they were trying to focus on air flowing and cooling, and they were trying to kind of find that balance between power and speed, and keeping the components cool, right? Because, like, especially with this new console generation, this has been a challenge on the engineering side for both Sony and Microsoft to keep these consoles as powerful as they can, but also make sure that they don't run like your Dreamcast eating Legos, like where it's like super loud and grindy or something like that. So, yeah. Yep. Yep, we do. that was. Well, yeah. Well, yeah. They took a multi-billion-dollar hit, but I mean, I'm sure you probably know about this. As Microsoft actually knew about the Red Ring actually to an extent before it launched. Like, I don't know if you read about that, but there was, yeah. So they. But I'm glad, like you said, they're nonetheless, regardless of whether they knew or not, that they're learning from the mistakes and trying to make, amends on that side of things. So I think that Microsoft,
I think they have a good shot at this generation. I think that they're coming in with a very unique approach, but I think it's the right approach for Microsoft because they also are in the process of acquiring a lot of different studios. Like I'm sure you've noticed towards the end of the Xbox One's life cycle, they've been acquiring a lot of studios. Heck, they just bought out ZeniMax Media, the guys Bethesda. So they bought out that. So like that's a huge acquisition. I mean, because people love Bethesda. So although it's interesting because I make the joke about Bethesda, I'm like, how come Bethesda always releases these games that are like always in beta and then they're broken, and then by the time they come out, it's like they have to have like 10 million patches to work. Right? It's so true. I mean, it's so true. Like I remember, I'm sure you remember the infamous case with the, what was it, Elder Scrolls, I think it was Skyrim on the PS3, how it was like completely broken and unplayable. It even crashed over and over, but the Xbox 360 had its fair share of issues too, so it's not like that version was impervious either. Oh, I already died, I think. Or did I make it? I don't know. I can't remember. Oh, wait, I think I did make it. I think. Maybe. I don't even remember. I wasn't really paying attention. Hey, you got this. You got this. Kick his butt. You got this. Jump. Did you get in? No. I thought you had it there. I was like, dang. Yeah, I made it to that, but yeah, that's no worries. Yeah, but like, yeah, exactly. Let's do this, man. You got this, man. Let's do this. So like, that's why like even Dishonored 2, I bought that game from Bethesda. I think that came from Bethesda, and like that game had a game-breaking bug, dude, where I got to the very end of the game, and guess what? I couldn't beat the game. I had to literally start a brand new file and start over, and you know what I just said? Screw this. Like, I'm not doing that. Like, it's like, that's why I don't buy Bethesda games at launch, like, same as you, or like, I usually wait for a Game of the Year edition half the time, or I wait like another, like, 3 to 6 months until it's like, is it playable now? Like, does it work? Like, I don't know. It's just like, that's what kind of pisses me off, that Bethesda like gets away with this all the time and nobody calls them out on that. Like people just keep buying their stuff, and like I think it's funny how Bethesda gets all this credit, but yet their games, like you said, it's like I don't know what goes on in their QA development or their department, but I don't know, logistics, scheduling, I don't get it. You know, I mean, I feel like game consoles, like, well, games have now begun. I think you may have brought this up, or maybe one of my other friends did, but one of my friends brought up the whole, like, games are now always going to be in this alpha beta state now. There's never going to be, like, that final game. I think so. I think it's still in beta, I thought. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't play that game much, but I wouldn't be surprised. Right? I don't know. I mean, like look at games like Star Citizen. You know, that game's like forever in like alpha, beta, whatever and stuff. And I mean, think about it like this. Like, have you noticed since the PS4 generation, games have always had version 6.5 dot some like number, kind of like similar to like a DevOps thing or similar to like something in IT where there's always like a version number to something. It's like I feel like that's what these games have gotten to, like, because if you look at certain games, it has like a version number attached, like, so you know that it's like always like in development in a way. So it's like, I don't know. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Right? Right? It's true. It's true. Makes you wonder, though, doesn't it? I did hear about that. I did hear about that when it does happen. Yeah, that's actually you back. It's funny you brought up No Man's Sky because I was just thinking of that game. You literally read into my brain when you were saying that. So I thought that was interesting because like that's a game that had a more of a happy ending. Like you said, like the developers kind of came back and said, okay, you know what, we messed up, but we're gonna fix this. We're gonna make this right, kind of thing. Because I remember a lot of people were very like really hating on the game. Like they were pissed. They were very livid about it and stuff. And they were like, what the heck, guys? What happened? You know, so yeah, I mean, yeah, so I haven't actually played the game too much myself. I mean, I know a little bit about it. It's like, from what I remember, it's like a space exploration game, if I'm correct in saying so. So it... Okay, that's what I thought it was. Yeah, the game reminds me a little bit of Mass Effect in a weird way. A little bit, not in a bad way, just the whole space exploration thing and whatnot. But I mean that is a good example of a game where they do it right and stuff. So I mean, but wrapping up before we go into the next discussion on the Xbox side of things, what I would rate it is in terms of my excitement for that or the overall, I'd probably give it about. I'm kind of in between a 6 to a 7, so I'll probably say a 6.5. I think there's some premise with the Game Pass, and I think that. Obviously, the technology like the PS5 is exciting to an extent, like how they use it, but I still am questioning like what games will be like exclusive, and then like what's going to make it so much better on the Series X over like people that are playing the Xbox One X version or whatever. And the only other reason I give it the rating of a 6.5 is because the whole naming convention thing I think has been really messed up since the 360. Like calling it the Xbox One, Xbox One X, Xbox Series S, X, and like it's just it's a mess. Like to me, I hate the naming convention, so that's why I'm rating it kind of low. But what are your thoughts now to give it a score, now that we've given the PS5 a score for our early, I guess, first look impressions, if you will, or thoughts prior to going into the console? And we can definitely review it after we get our hands on the system and like maybe revise or update that when that comes. But based off what you know about the Xbox and what I've shared, what are your thoughts going into the pre-impressions? Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. Exactly. Yep, that was it. They bought the wrong one. Proof in the pudding. Yeah, it's the proof in the pudding. It really is. So it's like, yeah, exactly. And that's like just like, and I get why Microsoft did that, because they're trying to create this framework or this ecosystem to allow for other names, like kind of like a series or family, if you will. Like kind of like when you think about like, what's a good example? It's like when you think of something like like a PC, like the Dell Latitude X number, whatever. It's like you have like all these ones that follow a different naming convention or serial number. So they're trying to kind of echo that like same family or ecosystem. So I get where they're coming from, but I think it's misleading a lot of consumers. Like the example you just brought up, case in point. It's very, like, especially for parents who are buying this for their kids, like they're not going to know any better. I mean, you know, so it's like, I mean, like people like us who are gamers and follow this stuff, even for people like us, like it can get confusing too. Like if you don't like think about all the acronyms, I mean, shoot, like if you're like the casual gamer, it's like, can you only imagine the nightmare they are having to think about this? Or like, I don't know. It's like the whole Wii U thing. It's like with the Wii and the Wii U, like there are a lot of people that I know that did not buy the Wii U because they thought it was an accessory. They didn't know it was a brand new console. They had no idea. So it's like, I mean, the Wii U, I thought that was like the dumbest thing. They should have just called it the Wii 2. At least that would have made it a lot more recognizable. Correct. It was. It definitely was the oddity, but I mean, it did have some good games. Like there were some good games I really liked, and I kind of hope for the Switch's sake that people get access to some of these games because there's actually a handful of Wii U games that I personally liked, despite its short shelf life. So I hope that the Switch gets more of those games. Like I know they released Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, which that game was amazing on the Wii U. So I'm glad that one got re-released. But there's definitely a handful, like Bayonetta 2 would be another one I'd love to see re-released on the Switch just for people who never got to play it. So I know that Bayonetta... Is it? Is it on there already? Okay. I haven't looked in a long time. On the Switch? Oh, really? I did not know that. Like, I haven't looked in a while. Like, I know I bought the Wii U version, and it. I think they gave you the option to get Bayonetta. Yeah, I remember they did that on the Wii U, but I didn't know on the Switch they did that. So that's cool. I mean, I really didn't know that. But speaking of Bayonetta, that is one game on the Switch I am kind of intrigued by is Bayonetta 3. That I know that's supposed to come out, I think, sometime next year. But that game's been like on the DL for a long time, as well as another game that I'm personally excited for on the Switch is No More Heroes 3. Like, I'm actually really excited for that one. I'm a big fan of that franchise from Suda51. That guy's crazy. He's one of my favorite Japanese developers. He makes the craziest games, but his games are good. Wasn't it? Oh, the second one's even better than... Think of the first one, Adam, but on steroids, basically. It's so much better, the sequel. Number 2, it's like, basically, think about it like this. Like, remember the things that you may not have liked mechanic-wise that might have been a little broken and stuff? Well, No More Heroes 2 basically fixes all those issues, basically. Like, with the, the traveling between the worlds or the areas, like the hubs and stuff, they streamlined that. The controls are a little more polished. And then, obviously, having the dual katanas and different stuff. So they definitely, it was more of a... I don't want to say a 1.5 version, but it was like basically No More Heroes 1 polished. I guess is the best way to put it, is what 2 was. So Desperate Struggle, I think is what the second one was called, but it was really, really good. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the first one because it had all the, the bathroom humor jokes, the anime otaku guy trying to get the girl, and all the boner jokes with the with the sword and everything. So it was... all the sexual innuendos were actually pretty funny and stuff. And I mean, I love the character, and the plot was simple and stupid. But you know what? Sometimes simple and stupid is what all you want at the end of the day. I believe I played the first one. Yeah, I played the first one, I know, back on the PS2. I think I played 2 or 3, I can't remember, but I heard those games were good. Love it. Oh, it is. That's definitely up your alley because it kind of mixes both the East and the West cultures together and stuff. It kind of gives you that vibe. So I know they released a in-between game. It's not like a sequel, but they had the No More Heroes. It was like, I forgot what it was called, but there was like it had like some mini games in there or something like that. It's supposed to be like an in-between game, but I haven't played it yet myself and stuff. So I know that came out on the Switch. So that looks kind of interesting as well too. So, but yeah, it'll be nice to see when the third one comes out. I think the Switch still has a healthy life ahead of it because Nintendo, as we all know, they beat to the sound of their own drum, as we talked about earlier. So they kind of just, Nintendo's always going to be universally like appealing because they're like Disney, right? They appeal to people of all ages, young, old, whatever. So it's kind of like they do. Right? And sometimes, like, when I think about Nintendo and their business decisions, I'm like, what are you thinking yet? Somehow they seem to... I feel like they have, like, this, like, secret Japanese guy hanging out in the closet being like... They go to him and they say, hey, should we do this? And he goes, yes, do this. Like, almost like a Mr. Miyagi just sitting in the corner of their office. Dude, I feel like that's what they are sometimes, because sometimes you like laugh at their business decisions, like the whole online gaming thing, which that could be a whole video just in and of itself about Nintendo's online approach. But it's just like it's kind of fascinating how Nintendo just how they continue to thrive no matter like all the crazy stuff that they do. But you know what? I have mad respect and love for Nintendo. I always will. Like no matter what. No matter some of the backwards decisions that they've made over the years, like I think as a company I have high respect, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have video games today, like straight up. Gaming would not exist if it wasn't for Nintendo. No worries. Ah, ouch. I got it. Qualified. Oh no. Oh no. We got a tomato guy, or a red hat, or it looks like a tomato or an apple looking guy. There's just a lot of characters. We got wizards in there. I love all the costumes in this game, by the way. We haven't talked about that, but I love all the random costumes of this game. It's fantastic. It really is. So, I mean, just... excuse me. I love the just simplicity of this game. It's just, you don't have to... Yes. It really is. I mean, it really is like a wipeout. That's really the best way to say it. I mean, literally with like some of these levels having like, well, like these like pools of like goo or whatever. They also kind of, this kind of game reminds me of something like Nick back in the day, like with all the GAC and all those game shows and stuff. It reminds me of that too, back from the 90s, like when that was like Double Dare. Yeah, Double Dare. I remember that. I mean, it's just all that silliness. Or like, you remember what was that one show that they had, the Temple of Doom or whatever that was? What was that show called again? Legends of the Hidden Temple. Yes. Wait, what was that, buddy? Are you serious? I don't think you ever told me about that. Oh, wow. They did. I remember that. No, I get what you're saying. Completely makes sense. It's just, yeah, no, that makes perfect sense, man. That's hilarious. Oh yeah, I'm still in this round. This is the part where I'm probably gonna lose. This one's tough. Oh, I see. You gotta move these boxes around. This is a new one. Really? Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. They are. I'm trying to get on there. Oh my. Wow. Oh, I see. You're doing pull-ups. Okay. Come get some. I'll be back. Alright. Oh man. And they're all over me. They're all over me like they're all dude, they're all over me like hams in a fat camp or something, dude. I have no idea. This one's tough. Really? Can you jump from there? That's the real question, yeah. Oh, come on. Come on. You gotta be kidding me. Come on. Oh my gosh. This game is brutal. This is the pain, ladies and gentlemen, that you deal with playing this game. It's frustrating as all heck. Pull up. Come on, bro. I'm just gonna climb the wall. What up, man? This reminds me of like when I did the Spartan right before freaking COVID-19 when I like was climbing over the things. That's what this reminds me of. I'm glad I got to do that before all that nonsense happened. Oh. I know, the whole air quality thing. I know, right? Well, not just that, but all the crazy Bay Area silliness that's going on just in general. Yeah, just isn't it? I think it's pretty awesome that he's moving to the same area. I think it's hilarious. It's who would have thought, right? It really is, because I was talking to Adam the other day about that, or a couple of weeks ago we were at Chick-fil-A, which, by the way, Chick-fil-A food is amazing. It's good. So we were talking about that, and when I found out that, we kind of talked about this on and off, but when I kind of got the more verbal, I guess, confirmation that he was doing that, I was like, oh snap, you're coming too, son? I'm like, alright, that's dope. So I'm like, at least I know somebody over there now. It's like... Yes. Hashtag Chick-fil-A. Go over there now and get that mac and cheese. Go get that mac and cheese. It'll keep your taste buds full and it'll keep you satisfied. You know, it won't. Chick-fil-A. Hey, you know what? It's you know, compared to a lot of the other fast food places that'll charge you an arm and a leg, like Chick-fil-A, I feel full on. It doesn't make me feel sick. So, you know, I'm all for it. Like, you know, I'm all for it. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No. No. You shouldn't.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I didn't even know about that, about the whole owner thing and stuff. So it's like, I mean, that's never even knew that. So, huh? Go figure. Huh? Interesting. I'll have to look into that because I had no idea. That must have been before the ownership exchange hands on stuff. So yeah, I'll definitely have to take a look at that. Yeah, it's one of those ongoing things and stuff. You know, my whole stance on that is, it's like, especially with everything going on in today's world, it's like, just love people as they are. Just stop judging people and stuff. And at the end of the day, it's like, you need to be able to embrace people, whether they're black, white, Indian, like whatever they are. Just embrace them as they are, love them as they are. It's like we're all people at the end of the day. And it reminds me of a song I heard. Called not the other day, but it just comes to mind when I think of those situations going on right now. It's like that we all bleed the same, you know. Exactly. Exactly. It really isn't. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it's that's just it's just one of those things. You just need to embrace people as they are. And like you said, it's like, who am I to, tell them this or that and stuff. And, at the end of the day, it's like, you just need to come to a position of where you accept people as they are. And like you said, it's like, as long as you're making a contribution to the world and you're really trying to make a difference in people's lives, add value, and you're trying to really, put that out there, that's what's really important. And that's what it comes down to, is because, success can be measured in various different ways, but I think the more value you give to people and the more you really enrich people's lives, I think that's where the true joy and that's where the true part of the journey really comes into place, because eventually you get to a point where, you get more joy from adding value to other people's lives than the other way around. I'm not saying you shouldn't, give yourself any pleasure in life. No, not at all and stuff. I think you should definitely reward and, enjoy the successes along the way, but, I think it's more enriching when you're making a difference to other people along the way, because then you can look back and be like, hey, not to brag or anything like that, far from it, but it's just more of it shows more of your genuine characteristics and the integrity and the things that really you develop along the way. And that's what's really exciting about life, is really you're able to look back on how you developed as a person and how you helped develop other people. I think that's one of the reasons why, making a segue on the channel, that's why I started this channel, is that for people that are new to the channel and new to that, is that I wanted to kind of teach things on personal development and stuff, and obviously play video games here and have fun. That's a big part of the channel, but really provide some value to people, and things that they can take away and be like, hey, I became better, down the road, being able to, just learn some things along the way. Yeah, we played games and have fun, but also just, take some lessons away, for life and just in general, take those concepts and then apply them and stuff. Because, to me, it's like, if I'm making somebody's life better and they're listening to the stream, you know what, I've done my job, or at least just have a good time, or maybe just unwind. And, a lot of times we like to just watch random crap on YouTube just to unwind, right? Let's be honest with ourselves. I mean, I do that all the time, where it's like, life is stressful enough as it is, especially with what's going on in the world right now. It's like, sometimes, we just need to laugh. We just need to, look at something and just laugh our pants off, for real. I mean, I mean, they say laughter is the best medicine for the bones, right? And it's. Oh no, you're good, man. No, you're good, man. I was just gonna say laughter is the best medicine for the bones, or it makes, it's just, because
you know, that negative energy and all that stuff, that's just cancer to your bones, bro. That really is. All that negative energy and all those negative vibes, like the media, like, will thrive on the negativity, but it's like, it's only stripping you of your life. It's so negative and stuff. Like, I'm not saying not to be informed. I'm not telling people on the channel to not be informed, but, like, don't waste all your time and energy on the news, because it'll suck your life away. It really will. Like, embrace life, love people, and, you know, just value every day as if it, you know, if it's your last. I mean, I always look at the sage wisdom of the psalmist who said, teach us to number our days, and I think that could not be further from the truth, because it's fact. I mean, like, you just have to, like, you know, remember that, you know, your problems in life are just temporary. It's like, there's roadblocks, and me and Adam, you know, we've both had our fair share of struggles, you know, in one way or the other and stuff, but, you know, it's how you see yourself on the other side of that adversity is where you really define who you are, because you can either let that condition control you, or, you know, let it be something that motivates you to kind of get past that that threshold, or that you know, that kind of barrier, if you will. I mean, I know that, you know, for me, I mean, like, this year, it's like, it's been definitely a roller coaster for me, just, you know, hopping from one job to the other, and this economy has been, you know, no exception. I mean, like, me and Adam, just in full transparency, we both work in tech, but I mean, like, you know, even in that industry, which is considered quote-unquote recession-proof, if you will, or pandemic, I guess, proof in this situation. It's like, it's not always the case. I mean, like, I've switched multiple times, and I don't even know how I've been able to turn around so fast. I mean, call it grace, call it, you know, good fortune, call it whatever you want, but, like, you know, I mean, the point I'm trying to, you know, give away to our viewers is that, you know, you can, you know, always make a choice to rejoice. You can always make a choice to see your circumstances as they are, but are you going to let them be a growth enabler or be a roadblock? And if you choose to let it be a roadblock, it's going to be hard to see the new doors that will open if you're staying behind that closed door. So that's kind of the, you know, the personal development section of the video, just for you guys to maybe take some, you know, notes, or maybe just kind of reflect on your own situations. And, you know, if it helps give perspective, then hey, you know, great. And I'm always here to, you know, talk, have direct message, or if you guys want to, you know, chat with me on my blog. I have a blog that I run as well too, called Love, Life, and Roses, that I run with my significant other as well too. So, you know, if there's things you guys want to talk about as well, just let me know. Like, I'm always happy to share my knowledge and tips, you know, from running businesses and kind of doing the entrepreneurial side of things, as well as, you know, what I've done in IT and stuff. I can definitely provide my vantage point. And, you know, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your background is. I'm going to talk to you as if, you know, you're another person and stuff. Because, I mean, you know, that's all it is. It's like, we're all trying to kind of go on this journey together at the end of the day. So I, you know, try to provide as much value back as I can, you know, during the process. Because, you know what, you know, we're all here on that same kind of mission or vision, if you will, or we're trying to kind of reach that, I guess, best version of ourselves, if you will. So yeah, you know, and that's kind of what inspired me to kind of create this YouTube channel, was for the gaming aspect, but also to provide value back and kind of create my own niche and audience, and, you know, kind of just set myself apart and do something that I felt like in the YouTube space was not being done. Because when I thought about the channel, I was kind of like, you know, everybody's doing game reviews, everybody's talking about games or Twitch or streaming or whatever and stuff, and does my channel have some of that? Yes, of course, but I kind of want to also make sure I'm giving back to the community as well and doing something that's very unique and different. So that's kind of why I'm here, and that's why I developed the channel. And then I was like, hey, I'm going to try to get some of my friends in here to collaborate. And I was like, hey, Adam, do you want to do it? And he's like, yeah. So I was like, why not? So it's like, why not get one of my best amigos to, you know, do some streaming here and there and just, you know, shoot the breeze and, you know, just talk life, talk games, and, you know, just have fun with it, right? It's all about the journey, as we were talking about right before we started streaming, and I couldn't agree more, really, and stuff. And, you know, a fun discussion that I was thinking about, and I know me and Adam have talked about, is like, what a golden era it is that we got to see gaming from its infancy to what it is. Like, what an amazing feeling that is, isn't it? Like, why don't you share with the audience, Adam? It's like what it's like to live in the golden age, like, of seeing gaming go from its small, humble beginnings to what we're at now. Isn't it incredible? That's right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So, just before I segue into that, like, I completely agree with what Adam was saying on that about life and whatnot, and it's really about, like you say, how you handle it and just remembering your why, because that's what's going to get you through those moments. Like, whether you're starting a new business or whether you're going through a job transition, whatever the case may be, it's like it's how you react to those storms, like you say. And the weather analogy I thought was excellent, so very on point for that. And the thing is, it's like you got to remember also who you're fighting for. It's like, are you fighting for your family, or are you fighting for others? And sometimes, it's a combination of a lot of things. You're fighting for not only a family, if you have it or not, whether it's like immediate family or otherwise, or there could be friends that are looking to you for support, right? They're looking to you to set the example. They're looking to you to help lead them, because sometimes they don't have a light, right? Or they don't know where to look, but they see what you're doing and you're inspiration to them. So you could be the inspiration that they need, and when they look to you, you set the example, right? Or you set the standard, like not in an arrogant way, but in a way of inspiration or motivation, and you could be the rocket fuel that they need to succeed, or to at least give them that push that they need. Because sometimes we know in life motivation is great and it's important, but it's not enough unless you take action. You have to take action on top of motivation. Like, motivation should be like the rocket fuel, or it should be like the way to kind of catapult you when you're having those those pivotal moments. But really, it's like no situation can not be overcome, because every situation can be overcome. And this is something down the line we'll talk about in detail as well. But just to kind of wrap this up before I go into the golden era of console discussion, it's like that's what it's all about. Is you just got to keep fighting for what you believe in. You have to keep remembering your why, and more importantly, you have to remember that there's always teachable moments, and that there's always going to be those struggles or adversities, and it's just, again, it's how you react. It's going back to your why, and it's really going back to, it's like, what kind of legacy do you want to live, or like what kind of example do you want to set for your family, friends, children, if you have them, like whatever the case may be and stuff. And remember that you're somebody else's like example, you're somebody else's light, or you're somebody else's like you're that person that they look up to and stuff. I mean, like, or somebody that can really be not only inspirational, but like be somebody that they can look to in the storm, because they can be like, hey, he went through this and he's on the other side now, so if he can get through it, I can get through it. And there's a famous quote by Zig Ziglar, who once said, if I can get somebody where they can get where they need to get to, I'll get to where I want to get to. And I really believe that to be true. If you get others to where they want to get to, you'll get to where you want to get to as well too. So it's just, you have to remember those teachable moments, and remember that, your dreams are actually closer than you realize. Sometimes I think it's hard to see when you're in the middle of a storm or adversity, but the reality is they're always a lot closer than you think they are. So it's a matter of fighting for, what do you really value? What's a priority to you and stuff? And, you know, and obviously success can be measured in many ways, but, you know, the thing is, it's the process and the journey that really crafts and refines who you are as a person, your integrity, and we're all, you know, on the same journey together, and you grow in different ways. But the thing is, it's the final polished product, like what you look at when you see yourself at the end versus like where you started, because we all start at the bottom, right? So none of us are immune in that. So just kind of want to end it on that note. And now moving into the golden era, I think it's been an incredible thing, as you touched on, from all those moments of the internet and all these game consoles just improving in terms of graphics and raw processing power, and just like it's been like, it's mind-blowing. Like, and I mean, it just, when I think about the NES or the SNES and some of the gameplay mechanics and the games that we had, like those games were groundbreaking. I mean, they were revolutionary, and if it wasn't for them, like, I mean, we wouldn't have gaming as we do today. Like, you think back to Nintendo saved the industry flat out. They were innovative. They were, you know, it's funny because Nintendo was like this Japanese toy playing company that like everybody was like, are you serious? Like, they had this like impression that you're not going to do this, because Atari had like failed and television had failed from a television. Like, all these consoles and games that just totally made people not want to play video games anymore. Then, you know, see this Japanese newcomer come in with Mario and Duck Hunt and all these unknown games, and then people got like hooked into games again. Like, they fell in love with gaming all over again, and we got to see the technological change from 2D to 3D. We got to see high definition, the short love of 3D, I guess, if you will. But the point is, we got to see all the golden era of gaming, from the arcades to the consoles. Like, even that was a seismic shift, or the seismic shift to high definition, where we saw games in like almost like, well, basically photorealism, if you will, right? And we saw the rise of the internet with downloadable games and social media and all this, like, all this amazing and wonderful technology. Obviously, you know, cell phones. Yeah. Right? Really, it is. It really is. It really is. It's phenomenal. I mean, the fact that we hold a computer in the palm of our hands, literally. I mean, it's just like, it really is. It's really opened up a lot of, I guess I didn't make it there, but it's opened up a lot of different possibilities on the gaming side of things, but just in terms of productivity and everything else, like, I mean, it's quite a phenomenal, like, and seismic shift compared to what we had. Actually, when you brought up the big phone, it reminded me of like Seinfeld when they had the big honking phones and stuff. It was just mind blowing. But yeah, I mean, like, I remember the Dreamcast. So when you brought up the Dreamcast, that just reminded me of like the fond memories of Sega's last hoorah in the console space when they. But Sega, one thing I will say about Sega, since we're talking about the golden age of like gaming and we got to see it from start to finish, it's like I think it's interesting you brought up the segue. It's like how the kids of this generation, they'll never be able to see it the same way. And it's like, that's the funny thing I think of, because it's like everything's so handed to them. Think about it. Like, all the games are in front of them. They can stream everything. Like, everything is just kind of at their face with social media and everything else, like, versus back in our day. Not to show our age too much, but like, we had to read Nintendo Power, or we had to like talk to the kid on the school bus to get the cheat codes, right? that kind of thing. Like, nowadays you can like literally Google anything, and within like seconds or even microseconds you have everything you would ever want to know about a game at your fingertips. Everything. Yeah. I did in Bend, Oregon. True. It's true. Yeah. Oh, it has. It really has. It has, from the apps to the smartphones, everything, and even just, the kind of games that we play and stuff. Like, downloadable content was never a thing back then. Think about it, or all this social media stuff, all streaming, or just all these like different things were never even a thought process. Like we used to get stuff on cartridges, and then we got it on CDs, and granted we still get stuff on discs, but even that, as you just brought up, that's starting to become a thing of the past, because there's been a seismic shift in terms of how we're getting game content delivered and consumed, as you just brought up. It's like with all the digital consumption. I mean, you look at music and movies and stuff, everybody streams everything, or they use Spotify or, Netflix, where it's like nobody's like really buying movies that often anymore, just because like you have everything literally at your fingertips, whether it's through a Fire Stick, or like using your smart TV with the built-in apps, or, game consoles, as we're talking about gaming. So it's like everything, like you said, is becoming very instantaneous and at your fingertips. And while that can be awesome, it can also be very dangerous as well, to a certain extent too. But that's like a whole, I mean, obviously that goes into the whole ethical morality and some of the other aspects of life and stuff. But it's both good and bad, but it's also exciting at the same time, and it's kind of nice to a certain extent. But at the same time, as you mentioned, the previous generations, like, they'll never understand some of those memories, like of what a Blockbuster or anything like that is, because they have Redbox. They have everything literally within not even an arm's reach. They literally just touch a button, and it's there. It's done. So it's just kind of it's kind of phenomenal. But in part of that, it makes me nostalgic for the days of the cartridge and stuff, where you literally popped it in, you had to blow the cartridge and do all these things to make it work. And nowadays you pop in a disc and it just works, although now you have to get 30 updates. Exactly. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely have a discussion on the whole discussion of DLC cash grabs and how they're handling content and distribution. Like you said, that's a whole topic in and of itself. And that is true, because if they didn't QA test those games, it could be and it was a game breaking bug. It's they'd have to either reissue the whole cartridge. I actually read an interesting story. Where apparently, I think it was Turok 2 for the Nintendo 64 actually had a game-breaking bug where they actually had to re-release a whole new cartridge for that game. It literally had a game-breaking bug. I didn't even know about this till recently. I read an article about this, because I had no idea, and apparently I think it was the black variant, because I don't know if you remember on the N64, but some of the cartridges had different color variants, and Turok 2, I believe, had to get re-released as a gray cartridge because it had a game-breaking bug on the black one, I think, or maybe it was the silver, but either way. But it just is something I figured I'd bring up, because you were talking about that in a segue, how they they had a one-shot deal on that. It's not like today where they can rely on online networks and patching, which I think in some ways I think is awesome, because if they find a game-breaking bug, they can fix it. But there's also the devil's advocate. There's also the aspect of they can be kind of lazier and get a game out faster because they can just rely on that network or that framework to do all that. So it's a double-edged sword, and again, we'll talk about it in our DLC discussion about like how they can add content and how it can be good or bad depending on how it's handled, how it's distributed, the type of content, and whatnot. So for sure. And then, but one of the things on the Golden Age that I thought was really fascinating that sometimes gets overlooked is when you look at like Sega, for example. Sega was a very risk-taking company, but they were actually very innovative that I don't think Sega also got a lot of the love that they sometimes never get because Nintendo took a lot of the limelight. I mean, I know eventually Nintendo and Sega, kind of shook hands and started building more partnerships on the consoles and stuff with, a lot of the Sega games coming to like the Nintendo GameCube over the years or other Nintendo consoles and whatnot. But Sega was also very innovative because if you remember, Sega had the Sega Channel where you could download games through a cartridge. Granted, it was over like the dial-up and stuff, but it was really the first version of digital distribution of games. Granted, it was only a small handful, but I mean, pretty innovative for the time considering back in the late 80s, early 90s, we just had dial-up, and I mean, granted, it wasn't like broadband, but I mean, for the time, it was pretty forward-thinking. Or even like with the broadband capabilities of the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast had the keyboard attachment, and it could play Phantasy Star Online, the first console MMO, because back then it was mainly a PC space with EverQuest and World of Warcraft and all these other MMOs that had become, or Ultima Online, but that was all PC stuff. The consoles had never really seen it, so PSO really opened up the MMO market for consoles, because if it wasn't for that, I don't know if we would have had that scene there. And now it's kind of funny because all these PC MMOs, or not all of them, but a good chunk of them are making their way to the console in one way, shape, or form with the keyboard support, or keyboard and mouse, if you will. So it's kind of an interesting flip-flop, if you will, but I mean, it's kind of like what Halo did for first-person shooters. Like, you remember PC, they had Half-Life, they had Doom, Quake, all these big IPs, and then you see what Halo did. It revolutionized the FPS for consoles, and then consoles started getting all the shooting games like Halo or Time Splitters, or you're getting these great franchises like Gears of War and stuff, like all these amazing games. It's just, and I think the PC also kind of is helped with this size shift, is because, like, with digital distribution, I think Steam and other platforms have kind of, or games on GOG, I think is what it's called, has like kind of forced these consoles to be a little more modular in their approach. I think Steam has kind of created that framework, because Steam, think about it, people can get their games within seconds, and they can also, share it between their, like, say they upgrade their PC, they can take their library with them wherever they go and stuff. So, I think the digital side of things is going to keep growing in that regard, going back to what I was saying a couple minutes ago, where it's like Capcom recently had a thing out, I think it was about a year or two ago, it was right before the pandemic happened, they had a article about where their sales have gone dramatically higher with digital over physical. Physical has been on the decline for them. No. Yeah, pretty much. Correct. Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that's a catch-22. And I mean, I've had discussions, you know, both with you off stream or just with other people in general. And I mean, I also tend to like the physical just because not only the resale value, if you will, or at least the option to have that, you lose that right as well too. And that's something you also lose is when you buy digital, you lose the right to resell the game. There's no you know, value there. And I mean, you also run into these scenarios where there could be a game that if it gets delisted and you didn't download it, you no longer have access or the ability to get it. Like, I'll give you a good example. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World was a very popular beat 'em up on the PS3 and the 360, and everybody loved that game. And guess what happened? It got pulled from the store. People were pissed. I mean, people were like writing up like or they were trying to petition and everything else and do all these things to get it. And although what's interesting is Ubisoft announced during E3 this year, which was virtual this year because of COVID-19, but they announced a re-release of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. It's actually coming back to, yeah, which I think is awesome because a lot of people wanted to play that game and they wanted to download it. But guess what? If you didn't download it during that period of time, you were screwed. You had no way to get it because, yeah. Correct. Absolutely, absolutely. I completely agree. I would agree, good sir. I would agree, good sir. So just to piggyback on what I'm saying, yeah, definitely leave comments in there if you guys have suggestions or feedback or thoughts, or if there's games you want us to stream or play, just let us know, and we'll be happy to read that. I read all the comments and different suggestions, so definitely let us know, because success, the best teacher for success, or the best teacher for that is criticism and constructive feedback, and it's just how you interpret and use it, right? So I'm glad you brought that up, Adam. So definitely a good segue to keep both of us in line, because we want to make sure that we're providing content to you guys that's of value, and we want to make sure your time is well spent here as well too, as you're spending time listening to us spew out all this craziness on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. I would completely agree. I'm glad you. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Isn't it? It's. Yeah. No, but I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's a very good. I think that's a very good point you bring up about like personal development and just how to approach these things, and kind of seek out like people that, if they know how to do something and you're trying to learn it, to really leverage that, because leverage is a big thing that a lot of us, as you clearly talked about, is kind of underutilized, because a lot of people, well, it's because as humans we like to be self-sufficient, right? We like to think that we can do everything, but in reality we have to acknowledge that we have strengths and weaknesses, and to leverage people when they know something and how to do something, so you can learn how to do it yourself. Like, I mean, like, because there's always going to be a domain or somebody that's a subject matter expert on something that you may not know a lot about. You may have some knowledge, but it's important to leverage somebody if they can be willing to teach you and be willing to be a listener, be willing to listen. That's a big thing. I think in our culture and our society, there's more time spent talking instead of listening. Yeah. Absolutely. I've fallen into that trap too, so you're good, brother. Like I've had to run into that trap too. It's just you got to be able to kind of bring yourself back to that. Be like, just like acknowledge that, like, hey, I should have like spent more time listening. But I'm still learning, and just have that level of humility, have that level of humbleness, and I think that's something that we all have to remind ourselves of that, because it's something that can be easily lost in translation, if you will. So, oh yeah, absolutely. Well, because the thing is, you hit on something that I think was a very good point for our audience, is that, a lot of times we try to get when we're talking to somebody, we try to get in our point like it's the greatest point of ever, or it's like the most significant, but we have to remember that everybody's opinion or perspective on that has value and has merit, but we need to make sure that it's exchanged in a proper way where both people are feeling valued or feeling their voices being heard or communicated, versus like trying to talk over somebody, because then you're basically telling somebody, hey, they're not that important or something like that. So we need to be able to make sure that that value is translated across both spectrums, if you will. So it's good. This is good stuff for sure. So just to wrap up our previous conversation on the golden era, it's been a fantastic thing, from the media to the technology to the types of games we've seen. I mean, like, some of my favorite games, like, if it wasn't for like systems like the PlayStation, we had like Final Fantasy VII, which laid the framework for me getting into role-playing games. If it wasn't for that game, I wouldn't have played the Tales games or the Lunar games, or really any RPG series. So it's like, if it wasn't for the golden era of gaming, I don't think I would appreciate gaming as much as I do today. Like, I don't think I would, like, if I were growing up in the era now, I feel like I would not see gaming the same way as I do today. Because like today, it's like it's not only mind-blowing to see how games have evolved from the technology side of things, but you know what it is? It's really just seeing how we've been able to grow as people through these games. Like, you look at how we were as like 5 or 10-year-olds just playing our Nintendos to, where we are now, and how we play games and look at them in terms of like, storylines and characters, and just, gaming as a whole. It's like, it's really fascinating, just kind of the science and psychology of it, if you will. It really is, beyond just the basic things like gameplay and graphics and all stuff. I think that stuff is great, but like looking at how we developed as like individuals, I think that's kind of a fascinating thing in and of itself too. I think, in a way. No. I think that's definitely something that's just, I don't know. It's something that's really really unique, if you will. Like, I mean, like, I have a lot of great memories of the Dreamcast, like with Sonic Adventure 2 and Marvel vs. Capcom, and a lot of great games. Just like, I mean, that's a video we could probably talk about just in and of itself, of Sonic and the 3D rise and fall, because I love. Oh my gosh. That could be a whole video just by itself. Like, I love Sonic. I have nothing but mad respect for Sonic, but his 3D journey has been very bumpy. It's been a oh my world. Yeah, it's just Sonic and the Black Knight, anybody, or Sonic and the Arabian Nights, or whatever it's called in the Wii. He has, after Sonic Adventure 2, even Sonic Heroes. Like, I thought Sonic Heroes could have been a really great game, and like, I thought the tag team gameplay, I thought it was cool. Like, I thought it had a good premise, but like, the problem was you were slowed down too much, and Sonic is all about speed, right? He's not meant to be like slowing down, breaking barriers with keys, or just random like gameplay nuances that just don't make sense. Because what's the point of Sonic, Adam? It's to run as fast as you can through the levels, and yeah. I mean, it's just yeah. I like that analogy. He's like, I want to go fast. I want to go fast. Ricky Bobby. Oh man, I love that movie. Talladega Nights. I want to go fast. I love that. I love that movie with what was his name? Will Ferrell. Yeah. Oh yeah. You know the funny thing about Talladega Nights? I don't know if our audience remembers this, but remember how that was a pack-in Blu-ray with the PS3? It was. Did you know that? It was a bundle. Hmm. Yeah, it was one of the bundles. I don't think my copy came with it, but it was a bundle I think shortly after the launch that had it. I don't know how I remember that little factoid, but it was one of those things. Like I think it was because Sony was trying to really promote the Blu-ray format at the time. For those of our audience that don't know, Sony was one of the founding companies of the Blu-ray, along with I believe it was Toshiba and I think IBM. There was at least a couple. There was a few companies that were involved in the patent of the Blu-ray technology, which I think is funny how the PS4, switching gears, how the PS4 Blu-ray format had the games, but yet it couldn't play the 4K Blu-rays, and yet their competitor, the Xbox, could. It really isn't. But the funny thing is how Microsoft used that, and Sony's still making money off that technically because of them being founders of the format. But it's kind of funny because for our audience, I'm sure you guys all remember the HD DVD format that was very short-lived. And I mean, yeah, I think they had like it was a good try. It was a good try. I remember Microsoft had the. I'm sure you remember this, Adam. They had their HD DVD add-on drive. I think I still have one of those. I think I still have that thing. Right? You can get it for free on the internet. Isn't it fascinating how like some of those technological advances, like remember how people used to go on like Napster and BearShare and all these peer-to-peer sites to get their music. Obviously there's a whole ethical thing, but I mean LimeWire, Napster, and nowadays you have Spotify and Pandora and all these streaming apps that just like you can just download or stream everything like with a subscription. It's kind of funny how they were trying to curb. I'm not saying piracy doesn't still exist, but it's like they curbed a huge amount of piracy just by offering it as a streaming service. Isn't that kind of a funny thing how it kind of had that seismic shift? Because like I remember back in the day, people were doing it left and right. Nowadays, people are just like, hey, we can just stream it off that. Or even you think about movies and as well too with like Netflix, people just will pay a subscription fee. And I mean, I'm sure there's people out there that still download the movies and do that, whatever, to each his own. But it's just like, it's just kind of funny how these streaming services kind of curbed a lot of that. It's true. Exactly, exactly, and I think those are all important reasons for it. I think that's a big. I think it's a big way of solving the problem, like you said, that why people are doing it in the first place. And I think it just, because I think for a lot of people, it's like, that accessibility is now there, so they've kind of solved that big problem that they had. And I mean, on a funny note, now you don't have to worry about getting viruses on your computer. I remember back in the day, people that were doing that, it's like you didn't know if you were going to get malware on your computer, and then the next time you turn around, you're getting blue screens on your Windows machine. So it's so yeah, no, I think it's a good thing for all those reasons you mentioned. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with a lot of that stuff, and I think it was what it came down to is somebody found a problem and they found a way to solve it. It's really as simple as that. And I know that I used to buy yeah, I mean, like, it's like even like with Apple and iTunes, I used to buy music through iTunes, and now just like with Spotify, I pretty much like stream everything through that, or I find the music tracks on YouTube to listen to or whatever. I mean, I'm sure like there's certain content that's nice on iTunes, but for me, it's like I just loved Spotify because I pay a monthly fee and I get access to all this music that I listen to for the most part. And if there's some random or obscure thing, I'll just go on YouTube and listen to it if it's like necessary or it's not accessible, because I know sometimes Spotify won't have that. But for the most part, it covers what I need to listen to, so it's kind of nice, and I don't like having to carry around a big old hard drive full of music or a device to hold all that. So that's another thing that's kind of nice about the streaming stuff. If you think about it, you don't have to except for offline play, you don't have to have a huge device with storage. That's a huge thing. But the big thing I think that was elite besides graphical stuff and just in terms of the kind of games we got, what was really funny is some of the shifts that we had. Like, you remember back in the 90s, all the big mascot characters that we had with all the platformers, like everybody trying to beat Mario and Sonic and things like that, and now we don't really have that. Or the console, I mean, yeah, I guess console wars kind of technically still are there, but they're not as really relevant. Have you kind of noticed that shift as well, too, like from the golden era where it's like it was Nintendo versus Sega, or I mean, obviously we still have Sony versus Microsoft because kind of Nintendo beats to the sound of their own drum, but it's kind of fascinating how I think gamers have kind of getting to a point where like they're not caring as much about those kind of things, or just the trends are changing. Like now we have these free-to-play, pay-to-win, and all this mobile gaming, but like, isn't it kind of fascinating to watch that? Like, I remember how the mascot thing was the big thing in the 90s. Like, everybody was trying to like make their console have an icon or a mascot, and nowadays it's kind of like you're not really seeing that as much. Have you noticed that? Like, you remember back on the PlayStation days, we had like, we had Gex. Do you remember Gex from the PlayStation? He was like that edgy gecko. Yep. Yeah. Exactly. But you even had like these random one-off games, like on the PlayStation, there was games like Jersey Devil, or these like characters like Arrow the Acrobat from the Super Nintendo. Like these, like there was just so many mascot characters that were trying to, I guess, get a piece of the pie or a cut of it, and it's just, I don't know, it's kind of an interesting thing during the 90s. Like, and some of them were actually pretty good. They just never got the love they could because guys like Mario and Crash or Sonic were such juggernauts that they kind of defined the platform by themselves, right? Oh, Bubsy, that's another one. Oh yeah, Bubsy was another one. Or what's another 3D? Not 3D. What's another mascot? Oh, which one? Oh, Chester the Cheetah. Yep, the Spot. He had a couple. He had a version on the Super Nintendo and the Genesis. Chester Cheetah, I think he had one on the Genesis, and I think there was a version on the Super Nintendo as well, too. And, too cool to fool. You know what was a really interesting thing? I don't know if you knew this, but did you realize that a lot of the games that had the same box art on the Super Nintendo and the Genesis would actually be 2 different games, even though their box art was the same? I thought that was phenomenal. Yep. Even though the box art was literally the same. So it's a little bit of both, actually. It's because they wanted each console to be a little bit different, but I believe, if I recall correctly, they were handled by different development studios. Now, I know in the example of, let me see, like Aladdin, for example, like the Super Nintendo one was more of like a side-scrolling platformer versus the Genesis one was still a platformer, but it was trying to be more like the movie with its cinematography and its more advanced graphics, if you will, especially for the time, but it was also more difficult too. Like, if you remember, Aladdin on the Genesis was way more difficult. The Super Nintendo one felt like child's play, but the one that was more popular is the funny thing. It was the Super Nintendo one. That was the more popular one from what I heard. So yeah, I do agree with you. Some of them actually were easier on the Genesis than the Super Nintendo. So I think it was kind of on a game by game or case by case basis. So one example I'll give you is Bonkers is one of them. It was a Disney franchise that the Genesis version I felt was like child's play compared to the Super Nintendo one, where the Super Nintendo game was like incredibly hard compared to that, or like. You know, Aladdin, obviously, I gave the example right there. Or Lion King, for example. The Lion King, like, on the Super Nintendo, I felt was way harder than the Genesis one. So, it really was. It really was. So, to answer your question, I think it was, like, kind of a little bit of both, like I said, depending on the game, or depending on the game, really, because like it would kind of really enlighten the version of which one I guess was easier or harder. So like for me, like I was saying, it kind of flip-flop depending on the game, like we mentioned with Lion King, Aladdin. So different examples presented I guess different outputs or results, if you will. So it was kind of an interesting thing, but it's funny because as a kid I didn't know that, but then as I got older and I got more into collecting and stuff, and then I was like, wait, these games have the exact same box art. And the funny thing is, it got even more confusing because like Lion King, I'll use that example. They would have the Genesis version, right? And they'd have the Super Nintendo, but then they'd also have the Game Gear version, and that would be a completely different game, and the box art would still be the same. So I'm like, it just got really kind of crazy. So like some of these like games, especially back in the day, like Disney and Capcom, were pretty much in bed together where they were making the games for each other. And I will say this though, Disney and Capcom, that tag team on the Genesis and Super Nintendo was some of the greatest platformers and 90s games we ever got, because like, no offense to Disney games now, but they are not the same caliber as they were back then. Back in the 8-bit and 16-bit era, those games were legendary. Those games just, the gameplay was just, I was actually playing, right before we were playing Fall Guys, the Disney Afternoon collection, which has the classic NES games like Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers and Darkwing Duck and Tailspin. Like, it's actually a really good compilation of all those old NES games. And yeah, some of them had some hard mechanics and stuff, but those games just, they play beautifully. Like, they're classic platformers. The mechanics are solid. It doesn't have a lot of the same cheap death animation stuff like a Ninja Gaiden or a Castlevania, which makes you want to rage quit a NES game like really fast. But like, it's one of those things that just kind of set that staple. But it was a fascinating thing, like I said, during the time, is how these games would have the same box art, but yet they'd be completely different games. But I think it's funny, though, from a consumer's perspective, because you think you're getting the same game, but in reality you weren't. But I mean, unless you read it in a gaming magazine, how would you have known, or somebody told you off the street? So it's just kind of funny, like, versus nowadays, like, you get a game, like, say, Final Fantasy 15, it's going to look the same on the it's going to be the exact same game on the PS4 or the Xbox One. So it's like, it's kind of an interesting thing, and that's another thing in the golden era of gaming that really changed. You ever thought about how? Do you remember back on the PS3 and the 360 how the whole exclusive game thing was a big deal? Like how they were paying millions of dollars to get their game exclusive for like a timed exclusive, if you will, or to get exclusive rights to it for years, or just in general for the life cycle of the console. It's kind of funny how that's shifted as well too between these HD eras or the golden age of gaming, where that used to be such a big deal, like and whatnot, or even DLC content, and now it's just becoming like not even a moot point. It's kind of becoming a moot point now, where, you know, Final Fantasy, like, which was always seen as like a PlayStation franchise after the whole Nintendo breakup, and now, you know, now it's just all the Square games are coming out on everything now. It's like, I mean, I know Final Fantasy VII Part 1 is a timed exclusive, but even that's probably going to eventually come to Xbox, because it's like, it's the same hardware, it's the same platforms, essentially. So it's like, because now that we're done with all this custom architecture nonsense and everything's just using off-the-shelf parts, I mean, for the foreseeable future, I mean, that I envision. So because it's cheaper, because, you know, you remember with the PS3, the cell architecture was a nightmare for developers to make games for. So it's like, because unless you were, you know, Naughty Dog or Sucker Punch, one of the Sony second-party studios where you guys were like working with other developers and sharing materials, and just kind of like, you kind of had some people that really knew the architecture. It was a pain in the butt to develop for. That's why all the ports, as we remember on PS3, did not do as well as most of the Xbox 360 ones and stuff. So it's just it's kind of interesting how we've seen a lot of not only hardware shifts in terms of raw power, but just kind of how we're approaching game design and how games are being distributed. Like, you think about content, because like, it used to be like, to sell your console, you'd have not only your exclusives, but you'd have like those certain third-party games that would stay exclusive, where you'd get like some kind of a deal. Like, and now I feel like that's becoming a thing of the past. What would you say? I think so too, because honestly, I think people should be able to access the game no matter what system they're on. I think that part is a beautiful thing, because I mean, like, you know, for some people, they don't want to have to buy an entire another piece of system just to play that one game, right, that they want to play. I mean, obviously there's certain caveats to that formula. Obviously, if you're expecting Nintendo on a Microsoft or Sony system, well, that's never going to happen. I can almost like say with like 100% accuracy. I'm not saying that, you know, I mean, it's just, let's just be honest, guys. It's Nintendo. If you're a gamer, you don't even need us to tell you that, right? I mean, come on. Correct. It's true. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, as you just said, I mean, like, because, I mean, obvious, yeah. It's, oh, no, yeah, no, you're good. So, like, it's just, I would agree. It's like, well, at the end of the day, these game consoles are made for a simple thing, right? Playing games. I mean, obviously, they have media features and other capabilities, but at their core, their operating systems are stripped down for one thing: playing games and doing it in the most efficient and streamlined possible way there. And like you said, they're all computers. I mean, obviously with the you know, the chips and everything else are just very specialized on gaming, of course, but Yeah, I mean, like, I think one thing that's been a good shift, I think, in the golden age of gaming is we're getting to more of a streamlined process with the technology, because I think it makes it easier for game developers to make their games, like, especially the third-party ones. Obviously, exclusives, as you just mentioned, give them that unique edge or the reason to kind of go for them. But it also, exclusives also help because it promotes innovation in the industry, because the industry can see what other guys are doing and either adopt their ideas or at least learn from them. And I think that's always a great thing, because innovation is what keeps this industry alive. And I mean, that's something we're going to talk about in the remakes and remaster thing we alluded to earlier into this in this stream and episode. So because that's something that I feel like is definitely a discussion we'll definitely have for that, because that's something I definitely want to dive into on it at another note. But for now, I'll just say it's one of those things where, you know, there's certain things I'm glad they're becoming more ubiquitous, if you will, and not ambiguous, if you will. So it's kind of nice to see some of those things, but like still have the obvious exclusives to make your platform shine, right, or unique. I mean, like, let's be honest, if Xbox never had Halo, Xbox never would have taken off. We all know that for a fact. The original Xbox, Halo was the game that put it in the limelight. If it wasn't for Mario, Nintendo would not have taken off. For Sony, it was well, at least for the PS1, it was Crash Bandicoot. Crash Bandicoot really set the stage for Sony, because Sony needed a mascot, right? They needed somebody to compete with Nintendo, because, like, at the time, it's like, you think about it this, Nintendo had Mario, and they had Shigeru Miyamoto, who was basically a genius game developer who had all these, like, characters and properties, and Sega, you know, of course, had their arcade classics, you know, like Virtual Fighter, and all this library of games from guys like Yu Suzuki, the creator of Shenmue, who created, you know, Virtual Fighter and Hang On and all these arcade games. But Sony had nothing at the time. They were a newcomer. They were a new player. Like, they didn't have any, like, genius developer or arcade classics. They kind of, like, had to, you know, find their own niche, right? They had to find their own set of games, build an audience. And honestly, I think what Sony did for the industry was really incredible in the golden age of gaming, because they really revolutionized 3D. And they, oh yeah, Destruction Derby, like well, that's a good. I remember Destruction Derby, but it was really innovative what they did, because Sony was really, like, they had some balls, right? Because they were coming off of the heels of World War II from the, you know, just like as an electronics company. I mean, and they had success with the Walkman and other, you know, avenues of creating technology products, if you will, but it was the first time for a game console. And it's kind of funny as well when you think about the history of gaming. It's like, you think about the fall of Atari, the fall of 1983 with the crash of the gaming industry, and the fall of the arcades, and then you think about the whole Nintendo and Sony breakup, right? It's like an ex you don't want to talk to kind of thing. So it's like, but if it wasn't for the PlayStation, we wouldn't, I think, have the same 3D games we have today. And I mean, like we've talked about, I don't have an allegiance towards one or the other, but one thing I will give Sony a lot of credit for is they do listen to their gamers back very seriously about what games they want. One of the things I will give Sony a lot of credit for is, if you remember the whole PlayStation 4 feedback when they asked the gamers like what games they want to see like brought over from like the East or the West, and obviously, you know, Yakuza 5 was one of those that they wanted to get ported over to the I think it was the PS3 at the time. I think that was really smart that they did that, because they were getting people the games that they wanted, that they didn't want to have to, you know, get a Japanese copy, or they had to, you know, do other backwards nonsense to play the games and stuff. Or that's another thing that's been interesting over the course of the golden age of gaming, is the whole region thing. Is like how some consoles would be restricted and others wouldn't. I never understood that. I never really understood, like, it's like if you're going to pay the money, like go to Play Asia and buy a Japanese copy, it's like, what's the harm? You know, you're going to... It really is, and I mean, I get it. Certain games are localized for a certain region based on certain themes and motifs, or, you know, certain cultural, I guess, scenery, if you will, or cultural themes. But like at the same time, it's like you miss out on a lot of games you may have never ever experienced, because like they may have never seen the light of day. But it was kind of interesting how Sony has always been region free. We'll have to see how the PS5 and the Xbox are, but my guess is PS5 will be region free and Xbox will be region locked once again. That's my gut feeling what's going to happen, but we'll see. Sony's usually pretty good about being region free. Nintendo, they're a case by case. Like they change their mind all the time. One handheld they'll say, you know, we're going to do it. They do. They do. And you know, it's one of those things where it's like, there's certain games I know I can attest to. When I went to Japan, me and you went the first time. It's like, and I found games that like, if I hadn't seen those in Japan, I never would have even heard of them or never even knew of their existence. And I mean, sometimes, you know, one of the other interesting things is when we get localization. You ever notice how the box art sometimes with Japanese games looks dramatically different? At least back in the day. Like today it's more standardized, like where, you know, if you get like, let's say Resident Evil 2 for the PS4 or in America or Japan, I think they look the same, but like back in the day, they were dramatically different. You ever thought about that? It was kind of funny because of, I guess, cultural reasons or the audience and how they're marketing it. It's like, you think about Resident Evil, which was Biohazard in Japan. Kind of interesting how they had the whole naming convention stuff, the change, and isn't it? It's like, I mean, and I get why, obviously, because obviously they're trying to market it differently. Like when you think about Biohazard, what sounds better in America, Biohazard or Resident Evil? It's going to be Resident Evil. It has a better, you know, kind of catch to it. Yeah. It is. It's kind of an interesting it's kind of an interesting vibe how, you know, culturally those kind of things kind of you know, kind of shift, or how they kind of target it based on the demographics of that culture or that nation and society. I mean, like even like you look at Yakuza over there is I think it's called Ryu Ya Gogoken or something like that in Japanese. So it's always interesting how they although it's kind of nice how some games still keep their roots based off their country of origin, like Yakuza is a perfect example where they kept a lot of the, you know, Japanese mini games and a lot of the different things that were culturally relevant to not only the game but also to Japan itself. Because, well, as we all know, it's in Kamurocho, what was it, Kamurocho and whatnot. How it's like, you know, based off, you know, real places in Japan. So, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's really cool that some games still. Yeah, exactly. So it's nice how they keep that same, you know, they keep the culturally relevant stuff there, and they keep it relevant not only to the culture but to what the game's original intention and audience is. Because sometimes, as we all know, when they dub these games or they bring these things over to the States, sometimes certain things that the original creators, the developers intended for, get lost in translation, or they have to get altered to be more, I guess, westernized or become more, I guess, fitting to our culture, or, you know, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? Through the localization process. I would agree. Are you serious? What? Wow. Fortune cookie. It's true. No, it is.
I would have to agree. I would have to agree 100%. I think that's very on point. And I mean, I'm sure you're noticing with a lot of games nowadays too. It's like they just literally add different languages and that's it. Instead of, like you say, going through this whole localization process and have to change the box arts and do all these different things. Because I think there was a point you made earlier. It's like culturally, it's like it's not becoming as, I guess, much taboo anymore. It's kind of more like we've become very diverse and geological or geographical, if you will, where it's like it's not seen as like not only as taboo, but it's just more of like it's just become more part of the norm or accepted instead of like back then they were social norm because they thought back then they might offend Americans. Like I mean, look at back. Here's a good example I'm sure you know about. Like remember Pac-Man? Like they like the original name of Pac-Man was Puck-Man because people thought there was going to be some proclivities where they would have just changed the P to an F and it would have just given off like you know, because of the dirty mind of Americans that they said, at least quote unquote and whatnot. So that kind of goes back to the whole relevance that like nowadays like that probably wouldn't be a big deal, but back in the 80s and 90s where things were just so very different, I guess is the best way to say it. It's just compared to where we are now in that regard. So it's like you know, because you know back then we just had they were just different times, I guess. That's the best way for me to put it. They were just best times in terms of economies and social norms and, you know, what was, you know, okay to say, what was not okay to say, you know, that kind of stuff. And a lot faster. Or omit certain features, if you will, or it's like take like I remember Yakuza 3, like they took out a bunch of different mini games that were in the Japanese version because they said, oh, it wouldn't be relevant to U.S. like American cultures or whatever and stuff. It's like it goes back to what you said. It's like, well, who are you to tell me like whether I'd like that mini game or not, kind of thing. I know, right? I mean, that's true. No, that's a good point. I think that's a really good point. So, and you know, the thing is, as gamers notice this stuff too. That's the thing is, like, we're in such a diverse time with that. Like, I remember, like, going back to the Yakuza 3 example, where people, like, they noticed that from the Japanese copy, and they're, like, going, what the heck? Why was this in the Japanese copy and not in the US version? So that's the thing is, like, these companies should realize, like, gamers aren't stupid. Like, we know when you take stuff out of like the original Japanese version or the Euro version or wherever the game is coming out, and then if it gets like, you know, brought to your region, like they're gonna notice those things.
It's like we're in an era where information is, you know, shared so instantaneously. Like, I mean, like it's not that hard to find this kind of stuff in general. I mean, like, you know, so it's just it's an interesting cycle for sure in terms of that and how content is being, like you said, censorship and whatnot. So I'm hoping as we move forward, we get less and less in that and more of, like you said, the original version, even if you have to pay a little extra just to get the I guess super deluxe version or director's cut or, you know, whatever it is and stuff. Like, get it the way it was intended. But I think a lot of developers are also starting to learn that, like, at least like when they do that, because people notice that and they realize that it's like people want to get the game as it was originally designed to be or intended to be played. Like, it should be the way that, whether the guy was Japanese, Asian, or white, or Indian, or whatever, it's like whoever designed the game, they should be able to see their original vision, like what they had in mind for the game and how it was intended to be, I guess, looked at, interpreted, viewed. I mean, you know, that's how it should be. But, you know, it's... Okay. Let me see. Let's see. Oh, I left my phone in the other room. Let me see. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. For the Dreamcast, it was broadband. For the GameCube, oh, PS2, it was broadband. It was broadband. Yeah, it was broadband on the back, but I still have the, I think have the FF11 hard drive, I think, for that, but, yeah, I think it supported, I think, if I remember right, I think it supported both options. I think it supported broadband if you had, I think it supported broadband if you had the connection type, and then if you had the older dial-up, it supported that as well. Like, I know the Dreamcast was, if I remember right, the Dreamcast was it dial-up or was it broadband? I think it was broadband on Dreamcast. I think. Yeah, I think it was. So, because you could connect to a modem through that. So it was pretty interesting. You know, it was pretty interesting nonetheless. So, you know, but yeah, honestly, like, just to wrap up our conversation on the evolution of gaming, it's definitely been interesting, from graphics to gameplay to design to some of the more you know, legal things, compliance. You know, localization, translation. I mean, it just goes on and on, but it's been a kind of a fun ride and kind of seeing everything. But just to kind of close it, yeah, it's just, oh yeah, and we definitely can if people want to kind of hear about that. I mean, you know, it's like it's a fascinating thing. But just to wrap it up, I mean, like, now that we've seen where the past was and the future's going, what would you say the next big leap is, just as we close out this conversation? We've gone from, you know, 2D to 3D, from cartridges to CDs to these, like, massive, like,
games holding, tens if not hundreds of gigabytes, where do you see the future of this stuff going, really?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, on my thoughts, I think it's pretty much going to be a lot of the same thing. Just like, definitely let us know in the comments what you guys think of any of the topics on the PS5 or the Xbox Series X, like which ones you guys are looking to get. If there's games you're excited about, you'd like us to stream, let us know. And, thanks for being here. If you've stuck out to the end of this video, you're a hero, honestly. Like, you deserve a medal or a trophy. Watching it live or whether you're watching this later after it's been published to YouTube. So congratulations. You should get a cookie or a trophy or something. But, we just love talking games and shooting the breeze and stuff. Hopefully we gave you some, great value or, something of, noteworthy value or just something to laugh about. Or maybe you were having a bad day and you watch this and you're like, hey, whatever the case may be, that's my ultimate goal at the end of the day with this stuff. But yeah, it's a fun and wild ride. So with that being said, this has been our session on Fall Guys. This is Zach, aka the Life Leveler, and this is my buddy Adam. He is one of my cohorts and collaborators on the channel, so he'll be popping in here and there on different streams and whatnot. So we're still kind of compiling a list of different games and whatnot. You guys can find me on Twitch, too, at Life Leveler. I just updated my information on the channel for that. I actually had to change some different things on that on the back end, but, I got it up and running, no worries. And then I'm also on Xbox Live and Steam as well. My gamer tags will be in the channel description as well, so if you want to connect on that, that's great, too. So, yeah, without that being said, thanks, Adam, for joining on this stream. I think it's been a blast. We'll have to do another session, and topic-wise, I think we're going to be talking next about, just to get you guys excited for the next episode, we're going to talk about the remakes and remasters. So me and Adam are going to go deep into like our thoughts about what we think about that from the PS3 onwards, about what they're doing and how they keep doing it. So watch out for that. I'm excited to do that video because that's a topic that I know both of us have a passion about, so I'm excited what you guys will be thinking about that upcoming. And then last if not, as I mentioned before, which console are you going to buy? Maybe I'll open up a poll on that because I want to get your guys' thoughts on the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. And, maybe we'll make this interesting. Let's see which console doesn't overheat first. So, I mean, the rumor around the street is the PS5 is liquid cool and the Xbox is like a microwave, apparently, from what the early reports are saying. But anyway, with that being said, this has been Adam and Zach on Fall Guys, and this has been just a fun time talking games and doing all that. So, yeah, just watch out for more videos in the future. And in terms of the final question of the night is, if you had to play Fall Guys, what's your favorite season? Season 1 and 2. Let them down there below. And, yeah, we will talk soon. All right, thanks, guys, for joining us tonight on this Friday night. Go get yourself a cookie, drink a beer. Just chill. All right, peace out, guys.